week. All right. Yeah, so I guess a lot of the guys are all busy or whatever.
Are they busy?
Matt's out.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah, Matt's out in buttfuck nowhere.
Yeah,
again.
we were supposed to watch The Mandalorian yesterday, and then he was like, "No, I'm sorry."
Yeah, well, he said he was going to be out of this town for the beginning of the week, and then came back on like Thursday, wanted to play video games, but I guess everybody was busy. And then Friday or last night, we're like, "You want to play video games now?" And he's like, "No, I'm out of town." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah, we'll blame it on the Bell's palsy.
Yeah.
Just this one time.
Yeah, and then of course Dan doesn't answer the fucking group messages.
No, he doesn't, does he?
Yeah. Yeah. So you and I, Christian, we're gonna do another episode of with my buddy, season 2. I think season 2 started back in August when I did the first one with Stefan, and I just really,
right. Yeah.
I really haven't gotten to film a lot more of these just because we've been doing the regular podcast.
Yeah.
And I thought. Since we have a little, I guess, change in the schedule, now would be a perfect time to sit down with you and talk about, I guess, creativity a little bit. I think out of the group of guys doing the podcast here, you and I are kind of I would say, the driving force of creativity for
the podcast?
For the podcast and, some of the stuff that we want to try and do and stuff like that. And I find myself a lot of the time thinking about content and trying to film stuff and just do stuff with you guys, and I find myself bouncing a lot of my ideas off with you first just to see if it's feasible or if it's funny or something like that.
I appreciate that. I didn't know that's why. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess what the first thing I want to ask you, I forgot to mention we're starting this, whatever.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The first thing I want to mention or ask is, where and how do you find sort of sources of creativity?
Sources of creativity. I feel like it's one of those weird juxtapositions where you can't just be like, I'm going to be creative now. I'm going to turn, it's like a switch in your brain. I feel like that's how analytical people would understand creativity. Because I guess to explain where I come from, I've always kind of had a creative mind in terms of 'cause I grew up watching movies incessantly and creating stories. And even when I started skateboarding has a lot of creativity into it because you have to look at an obstacle and you have to decide what to do with it in a sense. There are basic things you could watch videos and watch professionals do whatever they do, right, and copy it. But I like to look at things and do things differently. Right, for example, I really like stalls on skateboard. I don't know, whoever is listening, it's just where you just kind of jump onto an obstacle and you're not really sliding or grinding it. It's called stalling, right? And so I'll always kind of think of creative things to do in that kind of situation. But yeah, it just even in cider and stuff, you just have to kind of think about what would taste good. What is no one else doing? That's how I like to kind of look at it. But I also feel like creativity kind of hits you like lightning, because there's sometimes where you try to create something and it's just not happening. It's kind of like writer's block. Mm-hmm. I think I listened to a podcast with Mark Manson, the guy who wrote that Subtle Art, Not Giving a Fuck.
Oh yeah.
That guy. Yeah. So he wrote a dating book too. He's written a couple books, but he said after he sold, because I think it did really good on the New York Times bestseller, the Subtle Art. And he said he just sat for 1.5 years and did Mario Kart. Because he just couldn't, and he tried writing and was just man, this is not fucking happening. And then one day he was just thinking about it, and I think he wrote a book called Everything's Not Gonna Be Okay or something. Does that ring a bell?
I think I've heard something yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna look it up to confirm what it actually was. But so it kind of hit him like lightning, and he just started writing because of the way he felt.
I guess it's more of a time and place kind of situation. Because one of the projects that I guess we've been working on for a long time here
that's everything is fucked.
Oh, everything's fucked. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the projects we've been working on for, I would say, quite a while now. It's been sort of shelved at the moment. Is that game show that we filmed back in the summer? We just had to film the latter half of it, right?
Yeah.
And our schedule sort of never lined up to be able to get all 6 of us in the same.
See, that's the hard thing when you're not paid to do something. I'm not saying that we'd have to be paid, but it's when you are just doing it for fun, it's hard because it kind of goes down the priority list a little bit. Of course, like I wanted to show up and I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But it just to get everyone on the same page, like you can't just have like a call sheet saying everyone be here at 5 a.m. or whatever, right?
Yeah, because it's not part of it's not top of their priorities. I mean,
No,
it's
exactly.
somewhere on that list, but
Yeah.
where each person is with it is different. Because I know, like right now, Danny's all about focused on school and that kind of stuff, and that kind of stuff falls on the side. Speaking of which, Dan hasn't been on one of these podcasts in I don't know, like a month and a half now.
Yeah, but I think when he's on, it's like it's a treat. It's like, oh yeah, Dan's on this episode, great.
Yeah, and I guess for someone who's wanting to, I guess, try and do something creative or maybe like start a hobby, I find that a lot of people tend to say that they don't know where to start. Like that first step is always the hardest step to take. Once they get going, they fall into a rhythm and they find out that they really enjoy it or something like that. When you are trying something for the first time, whether it be a new flavor of brew or something like that, how do you try and approach that first step?
So I guess it kind of, when it comes to cider making, everything I've done in the past kind of led up to that skills wise. So like I said, when I was a kid, really into movies, that's actually like what I pursued for a bit, and then the government here cut the tax credit for filmmaking, so the whole industry left overnight. I wasn't in a mental position to leave Saskatchewan yet. I felt like I was just too young, and I'm very much like my mother in that I like job security and I like financial security, and in order to pursue those creative industries, you really have to just like deal with being poor kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you just like
You take what you can.
it's a grind. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do that, but anyway. So then that led me into doing that biotechnology in school, which is a very analytical area. Like obviously science is very analytical. Sure there's like creativity, but the bulk of it is having an analytical brain, and that's what I kind of learned in that process. So with that said, when I'm developing like a cider,
Yeah.
I'll take my creative brain and I'll go, okay, what would be interesting, right? So I'll take, like for example, this is gonna be so long-winded, but pretty much since my heritage is both from India and from Europe. In Europe, my family is mostly from England, France, and Germany, which are all big cider-making countries historically. Right. So, and then you can go to India, and that's where a lot of our spices come from. Right. So I wanted to do something where I can converge both of my heritages into cider. So I would take, I like to infuse with spices. Right. So I did only in trials, but a blood orange and clove.
Ooh.
And it took a while to get it right, but that's where the analytical side came in, because I come from a lab background where you have to design multiple experiments and run multiple trials and try different things. So that's how I would do it. I have a log book, like a lab notebook, where I write my materials, where I got them, how much. I write my purpose, what I want to do. I do my calculations. I'll say trial 1 is this alcohol percentage, and I'll put in grams per liter of this, of this, of this, of this. And then I'll, based on that first trial, or actually I'll do 3 trials, and then I'll taste them and decide what the route I should go is. Like, say if there's too much clove in this one, like maybe pull back, but also you have to consider like how you integrate the clove into the cider, because if you crush it to a fine pulp, you're actually increasing the surface area of the clove, which means more flavor is going to diffuse into the cider.
Okay.
Right. So that was a battle trying to figure out like what, like fine, medium, coarse. Right. So you just do trials based on that. So creativity, I had to come up with the blood orange and clove and see if those two would mix together, but then I had to actually make it work. So that's where the analytical side came in designing experiments and running them. And then testing them on people, and then people being like, oh yeah, maybe the clove is too much, or like, okay, I'll pull that back. I'll make note, and then I'll go and write observations in my book and say, so and so thought this. I need to do this, and this for the next trial, and then I'll, when I have time, I'll do it again.
Okay.
So.
All right. Now we've mentioned that something that we want to try is more stand-up comedy, right?
Yeah.
I want to sort of get your experience on, possibly taking that first step into, getting on stage? Because I know that was one of the big fears that you had of about starting stand up. And I think stand up is just one of those creative outlets that always seemed so, I guess for me at least, like far away. Like I see that stand-up comedy on TV or something like that, but it's like it was something that I never really thought I would try and do until one day I just got drunk with my brother and we were at a Napper show and open mic, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So I want to, I guess, ask you about where do you see that first step for you at least, and how you want to approach to maybe like taking that step or. Yeah.
Oh man, that's interesting because like I write, if I think of a bit, I'll like put it on my phone. I have a whole thing. I think, what did I write down? Oh no. So when I was in BC a couple weeks ago and I was on like Tinder, because why not, right?
Yeah.
And I stayed in Calgary overnight with my sister and I was looking on there and it's so funny because every single girl has this gratuitous mountain picture.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's so funny. I would say like 80% of the profiles have a girl standing in front of Lake Louise or like hiking on a mountain kind of thing. And so I wrote that on my phone. I was like, how can I turn this into a bit? Right. So that's kind of like where the lightning kind of strikes kind of thing. I feel like it's hard to sit down and be like, oh, what should I
make a joke about today?
Because I don't know, everyone does it different. Because Joe Rogan says that he just like will get high and just start writing about stuff, not even that's funny, and then he'll read it later and pull bits out of it. So it's just like, I'm gonna go through it right now.
Okay.
Some of my stuff. But to get up on stage like that's terrifying because honestly, I don't even know if I'm funny at all. And that's the problem, because I feel like I could get.
I think that's the only way to know is to actually get up on stage.
Yeah, because honestly, like people might not think I'm funny. Like for example, I have a funny story. So I was talking to this girl like last week or like a week and a half ago, right? And I met her on Bumble or whatever, and she sent me. I was gonna delete the apps. I was like, hey, if you want to like text me or whatever, sure, here's my number. And then she texted me like a day later. And she seemed like interested. She's like, oh, like, she thought making cider was cool. She thought that I skateboard and snowboard is kind of cool. And then she's like, oh, what are you up to today? And this was last Saturday, I think. And I'm like, oh, I'm just doing a podcast with my friends. She's like, wait, you have a podcast? I'm like, yeah. And then she's like, what's it called? And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, don't worry about it. And she's like, no, what is it? I love podcasts. I want to listen to it. Right. So I told her what it is. And then I think she's like, okay, I'm going to listen to the episode you're on now. Never heard from her again. Which is actually really funny. I was like, oh man, she must think I'm the biggest idiot.
Oh yeah, I mean, like this is fun. I really do enjoy this kind of stuff. But there's a line where it's like, do I mention this to people? Like,
yeah, I know, right? But you know what? I like to say some outlandish shit sometimes, but I mean, it's more or less who I am. It's like if you can't, it's more close to who I am than it not. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think a lot of our humor and personality comes through this podcast pretty clearly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we get on someone like Dan, and he's fucking off the walls, like that, and that's his personality in social situations.
Exactly, right? Okay. So I think most of the shit is just making fun of myself.
That is the best type of humor I always find. Self-deprecating humor is top notch for me. Like
being short and brown, having allergies and shit. How every girl seems to want a fucking dog, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah. It's a substitute for a baby, essentially.
Everyone thinks I'm fucking Mexican, or thinks I can speak Spanish. Which is like, when you really think about it, now that I'm saying it out loud, it's kind of shitty. But I thought I had this really funny idea for a bit. I think maybe I told you this, but like when you get old, like, how you think of your parents as like God figures, right? For like, when you're a kid, and then you're older and you're an adult and you hang out with them and you realize just so they're another adult, except when you go to Target with them and you see a girl with a thick ass in front of you and you're walking next to your dad and you're like, oh, I don't want to turn my head and look at my dad because I'm pretty sure that's where his eyes are. I'm like, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I look, and I'm like, oh shit, he's staring at her ass too. And it just kind of freaks you out. I was going to try and turn that into a bit, but...
Now, do you think that writing stand-up comedy is a lot different than writing, say, something like skits?
I've never written a skit, to be honest. Actually, that's a lie. I did that.
That's something in high school?
Yeah, or just after university. I don't really remember much of it. It's probably a little bit different because I feel like in a sketch or a skit, like you're working with other people. And you're also filming it too. So if it sucks, you can just
re-edit it and reshoot,
just not show it to anybody. But if you get on stage, it's like you're putting yourself out there. I still think back to that one open mic that we went to and like how bad that one dude was. I'm not gonna I don't even remember his name was, but the guy I'm talking about who's just like super stoned and nothing made sense. And I was like, all right, like I could probably do better than that.
Yeah. So like, I think one of the most distressing things about, trying something creative is that a lot of the times you sort of base the whatever you're working on with you compare it to someone else's work, right? And I find that a lot of times I get a lot of stress over the fact that it's not perfect, or it's not like what my reference material is or something like that, right?
Okay.
And one of the things I've learned is that in the creative process, don't shoot for perfection, just shoot for done.
Who said that?
My cousin, actually.
Oh.
Yeah. So like,
cousin.
Yeah, and he's like, this is you learning your own way, your own creative process, right? Even if it's not exactly like a fucking, masterpiece painting or whatever, like at least you completed something, right?
Yeah.
That's something you've done.
That's why a lot of stand-up comics will say it's bullshit if you try to take like a stand-up course, because like you can't teach it because everyone does it differently. Like people will write it down, or people will just memorize it, or the creative process is different.
Yeah, well, I think taking stand-up courses, I think seems weird. But I think taking improv courses, I think improv is something that is a skill that can be sort of transferable, learned.
That's weird. I have no interest in improv.
Really? I feel like stand-up comedy and improv kind of go hand in hand a bit.
Yeah, I think so. I was listening to another podcast. I don't know who was on it, but they said because there's a lot of improv classes where you have to graduate to like the next level.
Okay.
And there is a stand-up comic who's like super famous now, but I cannot remember who it was. That they kept failing improv. Like the first level, they couldn't go to the next level. They kept failing. I'm like, yeah, maybe you should like come back and retake the course. And he's like, fuck this shit, and then just started doing stand-up, or was doing stand-up at the time, and just like, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Do you have any interest in doing improv?
No, not at all. I don't know. I tried it once in high school in a class. I think it was like when you're in grade 9, you just kind of like sample.
Just like a drama course.
Yeah, and then it was some kind of like weird game that we were playing in a circle, and I fucking hated it, so I kept saying pass. I don't remember exactly the game, but it kept going back and forth, and mostly because I didn't understand what was happening, and it freaked me out. But I kept saying, I was like, fuck this, I'm not, because I kind of had an interest, like, oh, maybe I'll try drama, and then I was like, nope. It wasn't
your cup of tea. It's just
no. No, I was actually mopping the floors at school once because I got into trouble, and there was auditions for the Get Smart play.
Okay.
And I was like, maybe I should try out. Like, I was just mopping the floor. There was like auditions going on. And I'm like, maybe I should try out. This would be an interesting story. Just the kid. This is what my head was doing. I was like, just, got in trouble, started mopping the floor. And then I went and tried out for a play. And then 10 years later became a big movie star. And I can tell people this is how it started. And then I was like, nah, I'm good.
Oh, I mean, yeah. Like that'd be a good origin story, I guess.
I did do a play in elementary school though, in grade 8.
Yeah.
Because they made us.
Oh, I mean, yeah.
You had to do it, and it was a Degrassi episode. Oh. I know, right? And I remember doing tryouts. Like they'll just hand you a couple of scripts, and then you just read them and try out for it. And I ended up getting like one of the lead roles, and I was like, "Fuck."
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and I remember. Oh, okay. Fuck, this was so annoying. And I remember at the beginning of the play, there was this monologue I had to do, and I had to pretend like the idea was that it was a school announcement, like over a PA, but obviously you can't do it over PA. So I had to stand in the middle of a dark fucking stage and like memorize this fucking this opening kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. To kind of get the play started. And this is a time where I was going through puberty like mad. And so my voice was always just like super uneven. And there's this kid I went to school with who was just like off the stage being like, don't squeak. Don't squeak. I'm just like, yeah. And we had to do it like, I think it was like 2 days. And we had to do it 4 times over those 2 days. And it was just terrifying every single time. And then it was just like, it felt awkward because I didn't enjoy it. Mm-hmm. Maybe I didn't enjoy the story, and then they decided to throw in this fucking dance at the end, like super last minute, and I didn't understand what was happening, and so I just had to like kind of wing it.
Just like break out.
It was. I don't remember. It's some kind of fucking song that you dance to. Like it's like one of the ones that like a lot of people would know.
It's like the YMCA.
Or the Macarena, but like it was. Oh, is that one? It's like step to the right. That one.
Oh yeah.
It was that. I didn't understand why it was in there. It wasn't even part of the script or anything. They just decided to fucking do that.
Toss it in.
Oh, man. It was but the thing is, everyone who was in the play had to do it, like, on the stage. But I was in the front because I was one of the lead people.
Yeah. So you actually had to perform, and someone in the back could have just half-assed it. You wanted to be the guy in the back half-assing it.
Literally, okay. The dumbest kid in our class, since everyone had to be in it, his part was literally guy who walks across the stage. That's what it was. And he says, excuse me, like he's trying to get past. That was his whole part. He would like, we'd be like in the middle of a scene and he had to come through like a student, be like, excuse me, and walk through.
Okay. I guess the teachers.
I don't know how we started talking about this.
The teachers knew where his talents lied.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you've mentioned this. I don't know if we've mentioned it on the podcast, but you had an idea for, I guess, a series or something like that about traveling the world and trying like ciders and stuff like that, and sort of filming it in a Anthony Bourdain kind of style.
just like trying it out and seeing what I guess maybe I should explain it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So being in Saskatchewan, you're not exactly in cider country. We're at Crossmount, we're like the most northern cidery, and like if you look at a map of all the ciders in North America, we're like the farthest north and the most isolated. So, and cider's such a new thing here, and me only having made cider for like 2.5 years, there's a lot of things I don't know, right? And there's things I want to learn from like the old country, or for places that have been doing it for a while, or people who are experts. So I wanted to create kind of like a show where I would invite someone with me who is in the cider industry or not, and take them with me to places like Germany, the Basque country in northern Spain, because that's like a huge cider place, England, even Argentina, because they're like the number 3 producer of apples in the world. Okay. And there are cideries down there, or even California, because Southern California has a lot of craft cideries, or even like the East Coast of the United States. Like there's a lot of places that make cider. And so I'd want to like create a show where I take someone with me and we just learn about cider, learn about the culture, how it's ingrained, even the food and stuff like that. Just like kind of like a travel show, but more cider oriented, I guess, to be something different. And the fact that I have like major food allergies could make it actually more interesting. But yeah. Okay. So
now
that was more of my dad's idea. That wasn't my idea.
Okay. Now there's got to be a process in sort of trying to transition something that is just like a thought, an idea, into reality, right? Yeah. And I think in the creative process, a lot of people sort of tend to have those cool ideas that they think is cool, but a lot of people don't follow through in trying to transition that into actual like things, like make it happen, right?
Yeah.
How do you sort of try and find the motivation, or the effort, I guess, to try and get something accomplished?
Are you talking about in general, or are you talking about the show?
In general, or you can reference the show too. I mean,
it'd have to be like that strike of lightning, because I feel like your brain's default, and this is I think I got this from Jordan Peterson actually, so this is not just me being a fucking idiot. Your brain's default is to do the least amount necessary, because biologically you're thinking of it, you're conserving energy pretty much, and you only do something unless you have a really fucking good reason to do it. That's the only reason why everyone eats, is because if you don't eat, you're gonna die, right? Nobody has to go and volunteer at soup kitchens. No one has to do really anything. No one has to do this podcast, but you sit every week and you edit and you upload. You're not getting paid to do it. You do it because you like doing it, right? So you got a good reason for it because it takes time. So in order for me personally to do something, I have to be really inspired. It's hard for me to go through the motions, to be honest. I really have to like be feeling it. Like even like sometimes I go skateboarding. As soon as I get to the park, I'm like, fuck, I'm not feeling this.
Just pack up your stuff and go home.
No, I'll give it a good go. Unless I get unless I like fall really hard, I'm like, yep, I was right, and then I go home. But then there's some days I show up and I'm just on fire and it feels good, right? Even sometimes like sitting down and like try to write, I'll be like 2 seconds into it, I'm like, fuck this, I'm over it, and then I won't touch it for like months. Or I bought a book on sharks.
Just like the history on sharks.
No. It's called. I think I talked about in the last podcast actually. It's called Emperors of the Deep.
Oh yeah.
So I've got this. I've been on this like ocean kick. I've actually always loved the ocean, and if I like had to quit everything and move away, I'd like go and save the whales and go study them.
Yeah, you mentioned that on the last one.
Yeah, exactly right. And so then I was feeling really motivated, so I went to McNally Robinson, and because I didn't. Fuck Jeff Bezos, man. I don't need to give that guy any more money. I don't need to buy off Amazon. So I went to McNally Robinson. They had shit for selection on books on like sea creatures and stuff.
Yeah.
And the only book I found was this Emperors of the Deep. So I guess the motivation came because I really want to know, right?
Curiosity got you.
Yeah, curiosity got me. So that's me. It generally it's just like I really have to be into it, and really my mind has to really be there in order to do it. Even at work sometimes I feel like I'm not like into it, but I'm there because I get paid to be there.
No,
I think that's like anybody. Yeah. But then there's some days where I feel like really inspired and really like, oh, let's fucking do this, right? But then there's a lot of days where I'm just like, fuck.
Yeah, I find that a lot of my motivation to sort of try anything creative is my friends.
Okay.
The six of us doing this podcast and stuff like that. It's like I try and think of just fun things that we would all get a laugh at. And I mean, the big focus on a lot of the stuff that I'm sort of like writing about or thinking of content wise is just for what can get the biggest laugh out of the six of us, right?
Yeah.
And then I think, okay, well, I mean, we already have all this equipment. Might as well throw a camera and mics in it and record everything. And I don't really care who sees this.
I would love to do more skits, like actual like. I know I just said fuck improv, but like I think acting in something would actually be fun, even though I just said fuck plays. But I think I'm interested in skits because you can get multiple takes.
Yeah,
and if it sucks, you can just delete it.
I want to do stuff like like Kids in the Hall or that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think we should actually like do skits. But the thing, like, that's also the thing is to get people together. They have to be in the right mindset because I once actually a couple of years ago was writing a screenplay for a short film that me and 3 other guys were going to do, or 2 other guys were going to do, right? And we all worked at the same place, had full-time jobs and whatnot, but we wanted to do this on the side. And they're like, oh, you should get the script done. So I wrote the script, I banged it out. It's a pretty good story. And then all of a sudden just didn't go anywhere because life happened to the both of them. Mm-hmm. Like one got a girlfriend and then one was like his wife was pregnant or something like that. So that became his life, which is fine, right? But to get people together, you have to be on the same page for something that takes a lot of work. Yeah. Because you got to sit down and write, and then you got to get a crew, and you got to get the equipment, then you got to get a location, then you got to edit, and then it's
tough. And it goes back to like that game show project that we were working on, like for I think it was like the month of July or August, like that. Like
yeah, that was a lot of time on your part too.
Yeah, that was like every weekend I had one of you guys here shooting for like 2 hours, and then I took another month to splice everything all together, edit it, and get all the graphics and stuff like that. And now like we're just waiting on the last half to get everybody together and film the reaction to everything. And, and it's just everyone's schedule is so different. It's just trying to find that perfect date where we can all just come together and sit and film.
Maybe we gotta like start smaller. Like maybe we actually have to do like a minute or two. Actually, that's a long time. Like a minute skits, right? You just write something really quick, film it in a couple hours, put it together, and throw it out there.
Yeah.
Because then you start to get on a roll. Like, oh, that was fun, and it's doable, right? Because this is the first attempt at anything besides like this.
Yeah.
And that's like a big undertaking. Like that's like a lot of scheduling, a lot of people, and like I commend you for that. But it's like, what if we just like start smaller? Too?
I think that's something in the creative process that not a lot of people sort of try and take. Like, you know, we have to do small incremental steps to get to that big project where, say someone who saw some cool woodworking video or something like that. It's like, I want to build a fucking, you know, ornate table or something like that right off the bat. It's like, no, you should probably, you know, build like a small stool or something like that first.
But I also feel like consistency is a good thing too. Like, I like how this podcast is consistent. Like, there's a podcast out every week, and there has been for the past year and a half.
Yeah, and like
more or less,
we take off ones for like special occasions or something.
Yeah, of course.
That.
But like the consistency, like that's honestly like not saying that like our whole goal is to like take this and
run with it.
No,
right?
and become you know, get like $100 million Spotify deal. That's not that. We just do this because it's fun.
Yeah.
But the consistency is there. That's actually why like, oh god, he's gonna hear this, but my roommate Brett, one of my best friends, and that's actually what I admire most about him is his consistency. Like, he gets up at 5 a.m, goes to the gym, goes to work, goes to the farm, gets groceries. I don't know, like, but he's also like an incredible woodworker, and in the summer he's got projects going like crazy, and then he takes the excess of his projects and creates something out of that.
Ooh. Right?
Because he's got he boards his horse at his family friend's farm. And they got like a shop and stuff, so he's out of the house all the time. And then there's me, I just sit and fucking watch HBO, right? And so I'm like, man, like I should really get into shit like that. But then again, that goes back to the motivation is that you can't just pick hobbies. You know what I mean? If you do, but then like, oh, I'm gonna get into watercolor painting. Yeah, you're gonna go buy all the supplies and you're gonna try it once and be like, yeah, I'm not into this, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of find you, in a sense. That's kind of want to try this like skit thing, because it's like, what if we just get like super into it and just start creating content?
Let's do it, man. I mean, like even this whole podcast, it started off with we were drinking at O'Shea's, and Maddie was like, "We should record a podcast." I'm like, "Fine, Matt."
Dude, that's the thing I love about you guys is like that whole New Zealand trip came together so fucking quickly.
Yeah,
and I'm like, man, I wish my friends would fucking do that shit, but they have no interest.
We were just sitting there, and we're like, "We need to go on a trip." We're like, okay, where are we going? New Zealand. All right. And then the next day we just we sat together, we booked tickets, and we had everything all planned. Yeah.
So that's what consistency is like a big.
Yeah, and I think yeah, just acting on the moments, because like we've said, you know, creativity has a time and place for things, right? If you let it sit, it just gets pushed to the wayside, and you know, you never really
you just like prioritize
other things, and you never really get back to it. And let's definitely try this good idea, because I think.
We can call it curry with chopsticks.
Yeah.
A YouTube channel.
I think at least with our group of friends, a couple of them would really have fun with just being even more outlandish.
Or it'd be like eating it, like the logo would be like curry with chopsticks, and all of our white friends would be the ketchup you put on top of it.
the salt and pepper.
Top.
Yeah. Now, like, I'm just thinking more about these skits things, and like doing sort of like 30-second skits, 1-minute skits or something like that, and it comes up with I guess in my mind there's a lot of logistics planning behind it all, and a lot of times people don't think that analytical side is part of creativity, and they think of, you know, creativity as being just sort of like this big expression of feelings or emotions or something like that. And have found, especially with working in this podcast and all these other things, there's a lot of planning and a lot of like thinking behind it all. And I guess, like you've mentioned with your cidery stuff, there's a lot of, you know, testing and trialing and trying to figure out the numbers.
It's definitely a science too.
Yeah. And I feel like people don't understand I guess that sort of work behind it all, and when they run into it, they give up a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's why I think you have to have a good team, like a diverse team, because if you're all creatives, like you're gonna go nowhere.
Yeah, and I think that's something
like you being our producer, like you got creativity, but you also have all the software and you know how to use it. So that's
and then like when we first started, Matt just had an idea, and I was like, okay, here's how we accomplish it. Mm-hmm. And then everyone took a look at it and was like, all right, let's do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I'm trying to do that podcast with Giovanni.
Yeah.
And every day I'm just like, hey, so this weekend, and he's just like, no, like I'm trying to move in. Like he's bought a place, right? So
Yeah.
that's like
okay. Well,
getting
whenever
him
you
to
guys,
do it.
feel like you want to get started, I'll produce the fuck out of it for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Make it a entertaining, stupid studio
Productions or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah.
and then be like Ball Boys
Presents the Ball Boys.
just
Yeah.
do it here, kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. I mean, that's all part of the creative process, right?
If you go big, you get a 10% stake.
Okay. All right.
We won't.
All right. I want 10% royalties on all the Ball Boys merch.
Yeah. So I gotta ask. So working at an accounting firm, do you ever feel like your creativity just gets drained by that place? Because I have an idea in my head because my brother-in-law is an accountant, and I just have this idea of just a depressing environment full of a bunch of nerds who don't know how to have fun and all they want to do is make partner. That's kind of like my idea of an accounting firm. I feel like it'd be very draining.
It is, especially around like the stressful days, like when tax season comes around, or like when I have to get month end, quarter end, year end reports in, or something like that. It is ball busting.
Yeah.
But I find that it helps with my creativity because I like to sort of stop myself from wanting to take a 22 and blow out my brains, right?
Okay.
I take breaks every so often, like the 10-15 minute break, just to sort of de-stress, walk away from the problem or whatever, grab a cup of coffee, search on things on my phones or whatever, and I take that time to I guess right now write skits and stuff like that, and I think it helps alleviate a lot of the stress that I have, and even if it's not grade A material that I'm writing down, at least I'm writing something down to distract myself.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's sort of a good balance between the two. Like accounting is really analytical and helps me figure out logistics behind things like scheduling and understanding the costs of trying to get something produced and whether or not it's feasible.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I take those short little breaks, I think that's when like sort of the creativity really kicks in for me, at least, because I want to escape the stress of work.
Okay, so
for
if you
a
had to
moment.
what would be your dream job then? Like if you could do anything.
If I could do anything, like
Within possibility.
Within
like,
possibility.
If you're just like, I want to be the king of Arabia, like that's not. Well,
yeah,
first you
I
don't
mean,
look-
I love accounting. It is fantastic. It's
First of all, you're Chinese. You can't be.
yeah. I mean, it's always been something that I loved and I've been great at. But something that sort of mixes my hobbies and everything like that. Media production seems very interesting to me, and I guess
Like
this
editing or.
Well, I mean, I do like editing. It's fine. I'm not great at it, but I think I'm better behind, sort of a managerial role, logistics, and in sort of figuring out scheduling. What needs to be accomplished when, where.
You want to work in that department? That's pretty much the accountants.
Yeah.
That's the accountant. They figure all that shit out.
Yeah, basically.
So your dream job is to do what you do now, but on a movie set.
Yeah, and then
that's totally in reach, dude. That's probably a lot easier to get into that than to like be a director or like sell a screenplay. Like you could probably do that, man.
Yeah, it's probably an easy transition, but like I do like the creative side of the whole media productions thing. I like sitting down here and recording these podcasts with friends and stuff like that, and writing scripts and coming up with ideas to try and torture my friends and stuff like that, and it's yeah. So like, it's probably it's achievable, I would say.
Why don't you actually like look into it? Because that's
well, the goal for me is always to get my CPA, so I want to focus on getting that first.
Okay, yeah, of course. But
Once I get that done, maybe I'll start looking elsewhere. But the CPA certification.
You can go work at Lucasfilm or something in the min department or something, like where you make sure everyone gets paid and I don't know, the heating bill is paid. Fuck, I don't know.
Yeah, working just the accounting department for one of the studios or something like that.
It'd be kind of, you probably get a lot of perks out of that, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get some cool merch. And
It's
some
the only reason why I
memorabilia.
know that is because I watched some documentary. I think it was Empire of Dreams. It was the Star Wars documentary, like one of the the main one, and they actually showed the accounting office on the set of episode 3. It was just a bunch of people sitting at desks and with stacks of paperwork and being like, "Yep, that's me. That's payroll for the crew. Those are like cast contracts and whatnot." And I just have to make sure that this happens. I work with the producer a lot like that, and it sounded like kind of boring, but
It's important stuff.
of course, it's important. You need that.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's the stuff that I really do enjoy.
You should probably fucking do it, man.
Yeah, I'll think about it.
Yeah, I know you're gonna do it.
Yeah, yeah. But before that, I guess I'll scratch the itch with just continuing to produce these podcasts and let's get this skit stuff running and
I do have an idea. I'll tell you off.
off camera here.
Yeah, off camera. It'd be funny actually.
Yeah. Right.
I don't want to ruin it.
Okay. That's all I really had.
All
You
right.
got anything else?
No. I guess actually, even this might not be that important, but I kind of gone back to this is such a shitty way of explaining it. I'm going to be snowboarding a lot again,
Yeah.
and that's something I haven't done like actual like tricks or even last time I went to the mountains to snowboard was like 5 years ago. Last time actually I missed last year and went to table once in 2018, but for some reason that spark hit me again, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm going to start snowboarding again.
It's that motivation, man.
Yeah, like I'm actually like researching because I've had the same board since I was like probably like 16.
You probably need to upgrade.
Yeah, and so I've been looking into because I think I used to eat a lot of shit snowboarding like on rails and stuff, and I was like, fuck, I don't know like why I'm so shitty at this. And then I realized that my board setup is completely wrong.
Oh.
Yeah, like the board that I have is not a good park board. And
It's more of like just going
also,
down
it
the hill.
didn't help that when I took it in, I told them to not sharpen the edges, and what they fucking do, they sharpen the edges, and then I ended up breaking my hand
Oh shit.
at one point. And yeah, so I've been like researching like crazy, like what kind of board I should get, and actually might go to Doug's after this and look. But yeah, because I just want to go snowboarding more, because none of my friends really did it anymore. I kind of all quit, but that inspiration hit me like lightning. I've been like, now my YouTube's just like the algorithm's just sending me snowboard
Yeah.
shit, and all my ads on Google are all for snowboards and stuff. So it just kind of like hit me. I don't know. It's kind of weird.
You know, all those ads and stuff like that. They keep that motivation going, right? Like,
I guess thanks Google for breaching my privacy and knowing what I fucking like. Actually, it's really funny. Today I was watching. I was gonna watch a snowboard video, and then the ad was for an Indian singles dating site. And I'm like, how do they is it because my last name is Singh that they just feed that to me? Because I haven't been looking at anything remotely close to that.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
They just assume.
I guess so.
That's hilarious. Good job, YouTube.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for joining me again, Christian, on this episode
thanks for having me.
With my buddy, and hopefully I get more of these put out, because I really do enjoy sitting down with friends and having these one-on-one chats.
Yeah, and hopefully girls that I'm seeing look at this episode and listen to this episode.
Okay, we'll plaster everything this everywhere, and just like, all right, girls, listen to this one.
Yeah, listen to only that one.
Yeah, you'll see how creative Christian is, and how he's got that motivation and drive. You get to really know him.
Yeah, and then I drink sugar-free Red Bull.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we'll just black out the Ball Boys episodes.
that wasn't that bad, but actually no, it was pretty bad.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
I mean, it's us.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Bye, guys.
See ya.